Okay, I've been making these videos on psychopaths, on psychopathology for about 5 or 6 years now, maybe it's more, 6 years. And they've been very successful and, for the most part, very widely accepted, enjoyed, and help people. And I've decided to start making them again because I feel I'm not going to be talking about this on radio all the time, writing books about it ever again. But I still think the topic will always be central to my work, and it will also be central to how we perceive the world in a kind of a protecting yourself in business or in any other way. One of the reasons I've decided to start making videos about psychopaths again is, firstly, I have this channel here called Puzzling People and Defeated Demons, which I hope you want to subscribe to, and also because it's time again. It's time again because a lot of the nonsense that, see, I launched something that was kind of like a double-edged sword. On one hand, it helped a lot of people, but I created my own version of the satanic panic, I think. And suddenly you've got these crazy, unstable, and insane people, mainly women. Sorry, I'm not being sexist, but they just were, who, and also very insecure and fragile men who saw psychopaths everywhere. Everyone ever pissed them off as a psychopath. And you have these ridiculous forums that were set up by deeply deranged and insane people who, my ex-boyfriend left me for another woman. That means he's a psychopath. Not that she never gives her side of the story. My ex-girlfriend, she wife, sister's brother, uncle, cousin did this to me. They're all psychopaths. That seems to have died now, and an equilibrium of kind of sanity has restored, particularly with basically the collapse of the biggest fraudulent site and information source on psychopaths, run by pretty much a handful of insane people and serial false accusers who basically showed themselves up in the end for being part of a cult. And those days are now over, and it's time to start again. Maturely, just like every other subject I handle, with a sense of maturity, a sense of responsibility, and a sense of not being afraid and good humor. This time, I would like to talk about one thing I've never really covered in my work to date, and that's the idea of the psychopath and bling, or the psychopath, the flash psychopath, the Jack the Lad psychopath. Now, before you start thinking that anyone who comes into a bit of money and blows it all on making themselves look fantastic and big hotshots, we have to separate, because I'm not a hysterical ninny who thinks everyone's either a psychopath, a narc, or a sociopath for being different than me or having a different worldview than me. Because I'm not mentally deranged like these people, I want to give an example of people you could mistake this for. So, for instance, there's people who have the nouveau riche thing. They never had any money growing up, or they're not very well educated. They win the lotto or come into a lot of money somehow, and they're all flash. Well, they're not psychopaths. That's almost like it's a cultural thing. A good example of that would be these Irish and British soccer players. When Irish and British soccer players start earning these phenomenal salaries, of like a couple of $100,000 a week, they you can tell them a mile away. They leave the training ground in Hugo Boss suits and these gigantic Swiss watches, and they drive away in a Ferrari, where the top European players leave in jeans and t-shirts and drive away in a Volvo or a Ford. That's a nouveau riche thing. Irish and British soccer players tend to be of extremely low intelligence, and from certain they're not very mature in how they. That's why they all get married when they're like 17 and stuff like that. Some slapper they met. They're not psychopaths. They're just nouveau riche. The psychopath, you can kind of tell. I'll give you an insight. Although Homer Simpson's not a psychopath, there was one episode of The Simpsons where he imagined himself winning the lotto or something, and what he imagines that being like is him wearing a giant wearing a gold suit, and you'll see that in a lot of them. They this whole expression of dress to impress. Well, you'll get that to the max. You'll get that to the max. But it's also, there's always something off about it. Like, it's very interesting. They will follow fashions and buy the labels, but There's a lack of subtle, like everything else, the nuances are kind of missing. You get this in cult members too. If you look at pictures of cult members, they often have hairstyles from the 1950s, things like that. You think of looking at someone who was in the 1950s, or the women dress in flowery dresses like from Little House on the Prairie. There's something not right there. They don't fully, they're out of touch with reality and social nuances. Well, a psychopath, because they observe people in terms of a pathological way. They don't get, they don't have a natural sense of classiness. Now, that movie, the American Psycho, Patrick Bateman's his whole thing with the music was bang on. He had no genuine love of music. He quoted reviews like they came from Spin magazine or Rolling Stone when talking about Genesis or Huey Lewis in the news, because there was no genuine love of music there, and that was because there's no personality construct. They'd be the same with things like bling and fashion. They would be like in the film, the guy, he was angry. He wanted to kill a guy because he had an embossed business card. He had an embossed business card, and he didn't. And that's what they're like. Why didn't I think of that? There's some element that's not quite right there. If you knew a genuine psychopath, you always notice something wasn't right. They tried too hard to dress to impress. They tried too hard to sort of like look really, really amazing or anything like that. They tried really hard to. I don't know what the expression would be. It's not nouveau riche. It's not like flash. It's almost like mutton dressed up as lamb, that kind of thing. Now, there was a famous serial killer in America in the 1970s who went on, Ron, what was, I can't remember his name was, but he actually had killed women, and he went on to like a dating show, and even though the 70s people were dressed silly, he still didn't look right even in that 70s garb. He still didn't look there or fully together or something. There was something not right about the way he was dressed, and it kind of gave him away. It's the same thing as when you don't feel right about them. It's an energetic thing, but that's sometimes expressed in people's clothes too, and their dress sense, that they try too hard. Like a lot of female psychopaths will put on tons of makeup or get huge amounts of plastic surgery to the point where they don't even look human anymore, but they think they look amazing because they think, oh, that's what you do. And the same thing with the men. They're like that. There's there's too much emphasis on impressing. Like, for instance, I saw a meme today and it's bang on. If a genuine person becomes a billionaire, they still dress like a slob like me. If a psychopath becomes a millionaire, they literally go and get the best of everything. It's like Jack the Lad, but not in a kind of a charming nouveau riche or innocent working class gets a bit of money kind of way. It's like this. It's like they really believe it, and you look at them and you think to themselves, they're a fake. They're a fake. I remember talking to someone who used to work in an exclusive golf club, and he said that there's this one person who joined as a member, and he somehow had come into money, and he said you could always tell the psychos when they came in, like someone that got rich in some business deal, is that they would drive the regular old money types would have something like a Jaguar, a good car like a Volvo, and they would take care of it and get it serviced and cleaned. And just wear regular clothes. Where the psycho would come in a Ferrari, and you could spot them right away. Spot them right away. And that's something I've never covered in my work before, but like that's something to like look out for, is the flash psychopath, the Jack the Lad psychopath. Now that doesn't mean anyone who's like this has these traits. It could be sort of like social immaturity, but this is just one more thing to look out on top of that. It's like what you know it's just like Robert Hare said. They can read the music, but they can't feel it. That's what it's like. So there we go. I'm back making these videos again.